That happened, basically the community took up our Slack and basically have a Diablo stable for Essex for Oneric. So what we want to do now is we want to basically a regular cadence, release cadence for OpenStack for Essex Unprecise. So when I was looking around for ways of doing this, I was looking at how various other projects in Ubuntu basically do their release SRUs. So I thought the best way for us to do it would be follow the kernel release team SRU process.
Which is what?
So basically, what happens if they open up a bug saying they're going to do an SRU, then they basically test, then they pull in the latest updates from the kernel stable releases, and they basically get people tested and make sure that it works, and they do a lot of testing as well.
So also they're on a cadence. They're on a
Yeah.
3-week cadence. They do 1 week of development,
Yeah.
1 week of validation, and 1 week of testing or something.
Yeah, I think ours would be like a month cadence.
Yeah. Part of the issues associated with that is they also don't just take pristine upstream kernel.
Right.
They have a bug for each issue, and if the regression isn't verified, you know, as an SRU, the patch comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we were looking at more of an approach of trying to keep as pristine to a Git snapshot as we could.
Right. The problem with that is Mark McLaren, who's basically the OpenStack release stable release manager. We haven't discussed when we're going to do stable releases tarballs.
Well, no, we can do snapshots.
Right. We can also do snapshots, but when there's a new tarball out, we can use the tarball.
I don't think we need to consider tarballs.
Okay.
I think what's the difference between a tarball and a snapshot?
It's more pristine.
It's just a point in time,
Yeah.
official point in time, rather than Git commit, isn't it? That's the difference. But I don't think that makes sense.
Is that doable for an SRU to
Yeah.
completely update the tarball?
Well, we won't be updating the tarball. We'd be using the 2012.1 release with all the patches in stable Essex.
But we make tarballs out of those as well. It's true.
If we don't, we can.
Why would you suddenly change the way that you build packages?
Nova.openstack.org, it did stop getting the tarballs there. I'm sure it did, didn't it?
At one point.
I sure hope not. I mean,
We're going
Not
to
on
use,
purpose.
if we're looking to hit a X cadence, and that is not identical to what a stable release cadence would be on for Nova or Lance or anything, then we're looking at making Git snapshots. So why don't we just make Git snapshots?
That's fine.
It's just cleaner across the board.
I think what Soren's saying is there's a tarball created for each commit anyway. So we can
Is
just
there?
wget the
Yeah.
tarball rather
There is a
than-
tarball created for.
we use it for. I mean, yeah.
It may not be
yeah.
happening for the stable branches.
The very
It
reason
can
we-
be. It's just a matter of flipping a bit.
Okay.
The reason we build it is that way, any test build you do, any build that you do with a random version, it's going to be. I mean, the infrastructure you need to build that is going to be identical to what you need to do to build a final release. So we make sure that we have
Yeah.
all the same artifacts for every single commit as we do for the final release, so that anything can be automated and it's tested all the way throughout the cycle.
And the Git snapshots will not contain exactly the same thing as the tarballs provide, because they're built using Python as dist rather than setup.py as dist and not the Git snapshot, and that creates difference.
Okay, I mean,
Like info
if-
and
Creates that.
yeah,
I mean, it's
if-
reproducible,
files.
but it's just. I mean, if you're going to be using the stuff from the
Yeah, no,
upstream
you're
stable
right.
branch,
I was unaware of that, so yeah, that makes
might
sense.
as well use the tarballs rather than.
Yeah.
Right. The tarballs don't have a changelog or anything like that yet.
No, but they don't.
If you want to see what's in the tarball, which changes are in the tarball, then you'd have a changelog of what all the Git commits in the tarball.
Yeah, right, that disappeared when we switched to Git,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't, well, I don't know what you would do if you
Well,
built
you
your
just
own
want
tarballs.
you want to see what's basically what's in the tarballs.
I
Right.
understand that.
Yeah.
It's just, would you create your own changelog and shove that into a tarball if you built
No,
your own tarball?
I would just backport the.
So I,
Patch that I
sorry
did.
Chuck, I think what Chuck's saying is that we want to have richer Debian changelogs, right? And so we're going to do some Git manipulation in order to be able to create a Git log to
Oh.
fix Debian changelog. Is that what you're saying, Chuck?
Yeah, it's whenever there's a patch under review right now. That's basically every time you create a tarball, we'll create a changelog for you, so people can see what's in tarball.
Right. Yeah, we used to have that,
Yeah.
actually, back when the BZR days, but
Yep.
So whilst whilst upstream CI and Ubuntu CI is of a reasonable quality combined, I still don't believe it's rich enough for a micro-based exception just to inject it in. So what can we do to increase confidence that it's regression free?
I don't think you can guarantee 100% it's going to be regression. Nothing is.
Well, my code's regression free.
Well, yeah, right. Wow. They're just Superman.
No, but I mean seriously, I mean automated is really good.
Yeah,
but-
it's automated tests. We can run Tempest. We can run batteries of tests against it, but if the tests don't work,
So we are regression introduced.
if the tests don't work, you should fix that before release.
Because
right?
all the
So
other
that you know whether something
runs
regresses.
Right.
obviously. So
Oh,
when
in-
it Tempest
in-
on the tarball, it's not useful.
No, yeah. So upstream and in Ubuntu, that's what we get the CI. But I think there needs to be an element of manual testing as well. I think.
Yeah, there has to be manual testing when package builds. There's the test suites run. That's a little bit of confidence there. We need it's more part of the OpenStack QA's spec, but it could include like regression testing, load testing, whatever.
We probably have to write up what we test as part of manual tests as well.
Right. So it should be a part of the SRU bucket.
So I'm still unclear as to how we're going to manage the bugs associated with the SRU. Are we going to follow what the kernel does and have
Yeah.
a bug for each
Yeah.
commit on the upstream
Yeah.
that forms
They don't-
part of our
Wait, what?
They don't do that.
Well, okay. That's how we started this meeting, be wise to that.
But I don't think that's what they do. And they have a certain amount of bugs that Ubuntu people have, reported, and they get tagged to possibly be, for stable release. And then they may carry patches that don't come from the stable tree upstream like the way I do. But for those bugs, the ones that came from Ubuntu, they have bugs for. And then for the other ones, they just have this upgrade kernel bug that's got 70,000 changelog entries in it. So I would say that our number is much more manageable. I mean, we're probably looking at 4 or 5 commits cherry-picked, but I wouldn't want to manually make bugs for that.
So rating Clint.
Yeah, Clint, I agree that the stable branch is probably more stringent than the SRU process in areas, but it's not perfect, and I think we actually do have to pretty much guarantee that it's pretty much regression free. I don't think it's suitable for us to be releasing on a cadence with just a high confidence.
So there's bugs that our users are going to report to Ubuntu that will hopefully be verified by one of us and help fix the bug upstream and get it into the stable branch. Or there's things that will merge into the stable branch that are easily verified by us on our cluster, whether it's in an automated test or in a manual fashion. There's other things that go into the stable branch that have it's things that don't really affect us very much,
Yeah.
or our supported architecture, Zen server
Yep.
related things. things that we personally don't care about,
It's,
that our users probably don't care about, that will go
Like Hyper-V,
untouched.
for example.
Right.
You know, if something's fixed in Hyper-V, that's actually incompatible with Ubuntu, right?
well, I don't think we should remove those patches because
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying in terms of test verification, it's not something that we need to
we
be.
can't test everything, but we can guarantee if the stable team upstream says it's okay, then I think there's has to be a certain amount of trust against us and them.
Clint, the bar has to be higher because I mean, you see hang on, the kernel undergoes more stringent testing than UDEV, MDAD or Upstart, right? And this is very similar. This is a complicated project where we're talking about micro releases rather than just cherry picking patches. So there is more complexity there. So we do need to put it to a higher standard.
And for UDEV or Upstart, you would verify each bug separately and run basically your own regression test on that. Whereas here, I suspect you wouldn't verify every single fix.
No, the ones that say our team finds and reports, we certainly will.
Yeah.
Or our users report with a good reproducible test. Then yes, I'll be looking at those personally, but like I said, for certain things, absolutely not.
But are you confident that the stable branch policy will align strictly with the SRU policy and that
No.
you can just release from that
I've
branch?
seen stuff in Diablo that probably shouldn't have got.
Well, obviously, if there is like an Hyper-V or whatever fix that lands and that you don't care about, you would inherit them, and those would not fit the SRU guidelines because they are not affecting Ubuntu. So and they introduce a part of uncertainty. That's non-negligible.
So, I mean, the other thing is Canonical also has an internal cloud based on OpenStack, and perhaps we could get them to be running as part of verification as well, getting them running the host package.
It's fine until they're not running.
And then it's awful.
But I mean,
So about 6 months.
the idea is that we're running pre-commit testing on all this stuff, right? And we'll be testing it before it hits trunk, or before it's stable. We're gonna, as soon as it lands there, I imagine we'd be testing post-commit stable packages before we put them in proposed.
Yep.
And then we could be testing proposed before they actually go into the archive.
Yep.
So is there a PPA with, I mean, whenever something lands on unstable, it lands in a PPA?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, as a start, I mean, Canonical could use that for its internal cloud. So that it goes through the continuous integration testing, but it also goes through, more real testing,
Outside of my lab, right?
with actual users.
Right, and that's what not in the stable tree, but with trunk this last cycle was the PPA that our CI lab was spitting stuff or shoving uploads into was being used by people on their own testing infrastructures, their own development, prototyping, whatever it is they're doing on Precise and Essex.
Cool.
So there was coverage outside of our team for anyone who cared to provide that for us.
Is that published, widely, that the availability of that PPA?
No.
Yeah, it is.
Well-
We outlined the process of how we run everything in a blog post that James wrote.
Okay.
It's public. It's on Launchpad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking more for SRU validation. I mean, pre-SRU validation, so that before we actually try to push it as an SRU, we could. I mean, we have all the artifacts ready. If people could just add
Yeah.
that and
Yeah.
help verify it.
We should do some.
Well,
We should publish. We don't make a big shout about it at the moment, but we should definitely do that.
Is the builds? Are they building right now off stable and putting in a PPA?
Yeah.
So
So
they're-
I've changed the PPA structure, so no verify anything at the moment. Only down Friday. So.
And one key difference with the kernel or Upstart is also that you will not have so many people testing from proposed, so many people running clouds out of proposed.
I can't see many people running a persistent cloud from proposed.
So
Would
I
you?
bet you wouldn't have so much testing feedback from the staging in proposed that the SRU process regularly does. And whereas if there is a regression in kernel or Upstart, it's called by all the developers or others that are running out of proposed. So that's why it's important that Canonical's internal cloud would track at least proposed and at best the daily SRU, the daily PPA, but there is the risk that you wouldn't get so much regression testing from proposed as you usually get.
I think you overestimate the number of people that are testing proposed, as it is.
I am 100%.
Yeah, and then when there's an upstart and you reboot once in 3 weeks and the proposed came through and you didn't ever reboot during that cycle, I mean, lots of things don't get triggered. And I don't think being in proposed necessarily indicates a ton of test. And so I think we should do a good job of doing tests, but I don't believe that we will be getting less than other people.
One thing I wonder about that PPA is there anything about it that makes it so that you couldn't just sync directly from that into the main archive?
Well, it's got a tilde PPA on there, and also the changelog isn't rich enough, as in basically a changelog entry per commit. So we would be jumping 10 versions if you like.
That's okay.
Oh,
It's syncing directly from the PPA into Ubuntu.
Yeah.
We manage the package that gets built in that PPA in a packaging branch, which then becomes the packaging branch for the next upload into the archive. If that makes sense?
Oh.
It's not a straight sync, but we maintain the packaging branch separately from the source, and then we just apply that packaging branch with whatever patches we have in there, and
Right.
packaging changes to the original packaging or source package, I guess.
I
We release
Come
those
back to
changes
you
to.
rewrite the changelog probably. And,
Yeah.
and
It's a
change
merge
the
between like an experimental packaging branch and our stable packaging branch,
Right.
which then gets merged into the Ubuntu packaging branch.
Right.
If that makes sense. It's worked reasonably well for the last cycle, and keeps it very consistent between what's in our lab, what's in the PPA, and what's in the archive. Is pretty
I'm just thinking, I mean, something we did upstream was that we made sure that the act of actually releasing was almost, I mean, it was almost a no-op. I mean, all you do is just change a pointer.
right.
So you just took one of the existing artifacts that you already built, that you already tested, and renamed it.
Right. It's not that seamless.
And
It's-
that would be, I've always thought that was pretty cool, and I just thought we could do the same thing in Ubuntu
It is.
proper.
It's not that seamless because, for instance, while we're testing and doing whatever we're doing on these packages, someone from the security team in Ubuntu can update, or some other archive admin updates.
Oh, sure.
So we need to.
Sure, and as soon as that
Resolve
happens, you
the
need to merge that in.
differences.
But
Yeah.
It's not quite as seamless, but compared to other packages, it's easy and it's.
I mean, I think it would be a really good example for other projects as well, because I think it's a very sensible workflow. And if there's a security update, that needs to get merged in. And I mean, if this is something that we're going to do, we could tell the security team that if you're going to do this,
Yeah.
please note that there are other versions that that would be really nice that you thought about when you came up.
Well,
Show us your version.
security trumps everything else, right?
Sure.
So
That's why they should make sure that whatever they publish should have a version that is later than whatever's in this PPA.
but then that could potentially shortcut verification.
Yes. Or what?
So the security patch gets applied upstream now. Yeah.
Oh, upstream.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant? Oh, I thought.
They would have to prepare the package with the fix in parallel to the landing of the fix in upstream, so that they apply a patch until they sync our fixed version. So
But I think we probably do also need a baking period of 2 weeks.
For security updates?
No, for normal updates.
So this is one thing that I'm not sure how we're going to handle it, but there's already been a few CVEs that were fixed in Horizon, Nova, I think.
Yeah, those would get updated right away because
Right. So those fixes already landed in Ubuntu.
yeah.
So if we
remerge them back in, or drop the patch because it's being merged into the stable tree.
and that's doable. I'm still new to this whole SRU thing, but we have an urge.tar.gz for Nova 2012.1.
Yeah.
The stable release comes, our first update.
Yep.
We're just completely overriding that
Yep.
tarball in the archive
Yep.
with this point release?
Yeah, it would be like 2012.1 till something, whatever, or whatever.
Plus something.
Yeah,
Is that,
Yeah, so the security team would add a patch, but at the same time it gets applied to the stable tree upstream. Next time we do an upload, we'll drop the patch, and then the patch is already
in there.
included. And yeah.
okay, I just didn't know, I thought SRUs are all built on the original source that was uploaded in the first version via patches and things. I didn't know you could
Well,
actually.
that's what you'd normally do, but part of the reason for doing this micro-release exception is to try to avoid.
Right, but I'm just questioning on the back end, it sounds like in the archive, that's all fine and Launchpad
Yep.
will let that happen, okay.
so some of the actions that I wrote up, like formalize the SRU process, which will be an ongoing thing. Ask the tech board for micro-release exception, and
So I understand we did ask, and the response was we would like to see a few test runs, a few like manual processes before they officially grant micro-release exceptions. So we have to do
That was what we tried doing with the first upload.
yeah,
Of Nova last time with the,
yeah, and it's still unproposed.
yeah, well, that was impossible to go through and manually verify 60
Yeah.
changelog entries.
so yeah, we'll have to do. With that in mind, we'll have to do a couple uploads
Yeah.
first.
So-
and,
So something else, someone was asking me about whether, as in SRU, we could change the Nova config format.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up in the next steps session later this afternoon. Oh, as a SRU.
yeah, as an SRU.
Because it changed, and in Essex, and Ubuntu still uses the
G
previous
flags.
deprecated,
And why would we change that in an SRU?
You should ask your boss.
because that's the future.
But
Are we saying that?
Well, yeah,
for
so we
stable
screwed up
going to change?
by not doing it before
no.
release.
Okay.
I said we couldn't do it. It's
When
too
you think
risky.
you shouldn't. I mean, the mistake was you should not change the configuration file format
Yeah.
as an SRU.
Rick said we should.
Yeah, but why? Why would we do that?
Rick Clark. So basically,
I've heard that, you've said it 5 times, but why?
because
not
basically he
who,
wanted to have
why?
a mixed cloud between one operating system and another operating system. He wanted to share configs between the two. That was his
But
rationale.
it works. I mean,
yeah, the config file formats, both of them are supported.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I said.
I mean, we could have done that before we released Essex and
Yeah.
made that the 1204
but
config
it's
file
not-
format, but
and it's compatible. It's not going to be deprecated mid-cycle, so we're still fine with it. So I wasn't smoking crack when I pushed back on that.
No, you weren't.
Cool.
So, is there any other comments or
is there any cadence for doing this yet? Is upstream,
no?
there is none? Anyone? So,
is there any particular reason not to do it like on a per commit basis? Really?
What? Releasing on a per commit basis.
SRUs.
I mean, not automatically, but just why wait?
Well, I mean, so that's what the kernel team used to do. Is they used to just basically do it when they were ready, and they found that by getting into a cadence, they actually had it set expectations of when people could expect it, and it also got stuff out faster.
It's kind of a different volume though. I mean, they have probably hundreds of patches every 5 seconds. We have one, I mean, way
Well,
less than that.
Probably a dozen or so a month. I mean, that's not unreasonable, right?
Really? That much?
I put in like at least 5
Stable?
last week.
Yeah, probably about a dozen a month. I think is reasonable.
Okay.
So I was, I think.
Oh, well, yeah, that's more than I thought.
I mean, you have lots of them in the first 2 months
Yeah.
after the release, and then it drops like to 2 or 3 stable patches per month.
Right.
So actually, this whole thing is might be a pain for the first month, but then it should. I mean, I'm not sure you can already decide on a cadence like every 3 weeks. Obviously, that makes sense for the start of it, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure you will.
Well, I
have
mean,
so
if
many-
there's no changes in that month, then it's not released.
Right.
it would be nice to have something documented as work items to kind of just schedule it
Yeah.
between us, like we have been doing for the weekly uploads.
Yeah.
Chuck has work items for each one that he checks off. It'd be nice that someone's at least looking at this
Yeah.
weekly or bi-weekly or whatever.
Yeah.
And
That's my intention to do it.
And you should try to convince other public cloud providers, at least test clouds, to actually run on your proposed package.
I can't see that happening, but
I mean, something like TriStack
Yeah.
might,
oh,
I mean,
that's
that,
a good idea actually.
I mean, they
but
they
they're
could.
yeah, they're still stuck at Diablo and,
depth stack and
yeah, whatever.
But if at one moment they decide to run on top of Ubuntu packages, on top of reasonably recent
Something to make
packages,
sense.
you probably could convince them to run on proposed packages, which
Who's the
probably
point of contact for TriStack now?
J types.
Yeah. I'll talk to Jay.
Alright.
But I mean, even if they're not using the Ubuntu packages, I mean, we should try to talk to them to make them at least use the upstream stable branch. It adds some validation. It's not, I mean,
Do you know what they're running?
Diablo.
No, the packages.
I don't know, random track of the day 6 months ago. I forget what that was. I mean, it changes every couple of months. Right?
Any
Do
other
you know
comments?
what
or-
they're running in TriStack? Like operating system or?
it's like a pixie booted depth stack base image or something like that.
Oh,
No idea.
no. Okay.
Any other comments?
So I walked in late, and I know this isn't really the topic, but what about the backport of Folsom to 1204? Is there a session on that, or is
Yes.
that just an internal action entirely?
There's a session tomorrow.
Okay.
You're not going to be here, sir?
Not tomorrow.
Oh. That's too bad. Alright.
But suffice to say, that's going to follow a similar process.
Yeah, it's,
That's it. It seemed very similar stuff.
this session is for people who don't want their crack.
Okay.
So, alright, thanks for coming.
Different question. Terry, is there going to be a pre-release release of Folsom? There was talk about a gate, I don't know, gating release at 4 or something.
What?
At some point, there was a talk about doing releases instead of milestones.
Yes.
And very likely, I thought it was going to be the last milestone might be a
We'll probably not.
micro release.
We'll probably not do it for Folsom.
For Folsom, okay.
Just because we cannot really change the expectations in the middle.
Okay.
And
We
basically need to
One of the
define what-
wrap-ups, it was still a discussion in the conference part, so I didn't know where.
we basically need to define what makes a release, and if it's like also release
Lance.
documentation, and I don't think we really can change the process until we get a merge window model or other
Okay.
things, and if changing mid-cycle might not be the best thing. We are expecting the release every 6 months if you just do a release after 4 months. It's a bit confusing.